If you were to enter a baking and pastry arts program today, the first thing you would learn how to do is the creaming method. And the creaming method is really just an umbrella term for a lot of different ways of incorporating dry ingredients, fats with wet ingredients. In what order, what stage, for how long. That's the crux of the creaming method. 1 stage, 2 stage, reverse, it doesn't matter. What you need to do is figure out what your intention is and what the outcome is. So if your intention is to just have a good time, throw everything in the bowl, not worry too much about the outcome, and you don't want to be hemmed in by rules, that is fine. If your intention is to have something that turns out consistently, that you can charge money for, that you understand what happens when things go wrong, then you are looking into, I want something to be light and fluffy, I want it to be sweet, I want it to be, moist. These are the outcomes that you're looking for. So my intention is to always understand what's going on in the bowl. In my kitchen, I personally pulled out a mix. It was in a bag, 50-pound bags, but you had to start out with a muffin mix from a bag and learn how to operate everything from the beginning to the end. And a lot of what I like to talk about is that you don't even need to read the recipe. Here's a student recipe. Really, really scary to put into words how something's supposed to be mixed, because if you leave something out, your student is gonna say, but it didn't say that. So it's almost best to do this, creaming method. The creaming method is many, many things, but what it ultimately is doing is initially combining ingredients, adding air, adding wet to dry. I'm going to mention some products and I want you to think about what the desired outcome is. 1, a yellow birthday cake, angel food cake, pound cake, pancake batter, ladyfingers, pie dough, coffee cake, a yellow birthday cake, zucchini bread, carrot cake, blueberry muffins, banana bread. All of these recipes have categories of ingredients. You have fats, dries, sugars, leaveners, infinite possibilities for what can be in there. So if you're making something basic and using a recipe, you need to read through the recipe with a little healthy bit of skepticism. Oftentimes, instead of just saying it's a cookie, the author of our recipes, especially in the home baking books, is to fill in all the details so that you don't make a mistake and don't miss anything. But the problem is it's still up to interpretation. The reason mixing methods are so confusing is because the outcome is often different. You might want something to be airy, flaky, tender, dense, chewy, and all of these things are going to incorporate a lot of different things. Proteins in your flour, the amount of moisture that comes from your ingredients, including the eggs, the oil, the butter, which has water in it. The amount of sugar that you use is going to determine the softness of what you're doing. So this is basically what the creaming method is. Whether you're talking 2 stage, 1 stage, reverse, it doesn't matter. The muffin method, it really doesn't matter. You are taking dry ingredients and you're adding them to either fats or to wets. So if you're starting out with the fats, you need to add air, the fats and the sugars. Once you do that, you're going to be adding either dries or liquid. Let's just say you've got your aerated fats and sugars in the bowl and you want to add eggs. Now you're getting into emulsification, so you need to make sure that they're all the same temperature, that you're adding them at a slow enough rate that they emulsify. But even when they don't start to, a seasoned baker knows, add a little bit of dry. Add a little bit of something that gives it catch. And then if you add too much of the wets and it's no longer smooth, you can maybe heat up the bowl. Allow heat to help you emulsify it. You could stop and scrape things down. A lot of the creaming methods rely on scrape, because a lot of what happens along the edges of the bowl is not being incorporated. So if you've ever started to pour out your batter and you find out that you have unincorporated stuff at the bottom, I don't believe that you have been engaged in the process of creaming your ingredients. So here's my advice to you. I have videos in my playlist explaining the different methods and the thoughts behind them. Go watch them. If you want to understand the mixing method from a much higher conceptual level, just remember that you are adding ingredients together in a way that results in a desired outcome. Keep in mind that mixing methods are really just about getting things to be cohesive, emulsified, and incorporated. So if you can do that using pancakes and cookies and by making a box cake, you can absolutely do it when things get more complicated, because as you get into pastry work, now you're whipping the egg white separately and then you're folding it in. Egg foams are an advanced concept, but they're really no different than basic creaming method. You're always looking to add air and then fold that part, mix that part, incorporate it cohesively into another part. So baking is nothing other than ingredients, parts that you've put together, adding more parts, panning it, baking it, and cooling it properly. That's the thing. And with baking, unlike cooking, at every single stage, you can't go back and fix it. So if I could encourage you to start to observe every time you bake, whether it's a box or homemade, observe, take a note. So it's up to you to determine what to do. I personally wish that more home baking books started this way, creaming method, so that you could actually fill in the gaps with your prior knowledge and experience, because you know more than you think you do, and you got to get some skin in the game.